Hey everybody, welcome to Watchworthy. I'm your co-host, Miss Chris D.
And it's your boy, Brother Ash.
And before we jump into episode 46, we want to wish you a very happy new year.
Happy holidays.
Mantra for this year is going to be Thrive in 2025. I know as corny as it is, I really have, high hopes for Watchworthy this year and everything else that we have going on creatively. So hope you guys had a great holiday season and we are going to thrive in 2025. And it's going to start off with us reviewing the 2024 HBO Max documentary, Money Electric, The Bitcoin Mystery. I'm glad you picked this one, Brother Ash, because I did not know anything about Bitcoin, y'all. I'm sorry, but I was one of those people who was always like, what is it? Is it even real? Like, how does it work?
Yeah.
Did you know much about it?
I didn't think Bitcoin was invented until it became popular in the 2010s.
Yeah.
But the history goes back earlier than that. So I got to learn a lot about crypto and how it's not just as easy as finding a CGI icon to start
right.
cryptocurrency.
In this documentary, the filmmaker Cullen Hoback, he really dives into the origins of Bitcoin and the identity of its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. So I didn't know that in the Bitcoin industry, this guy was like such a mystery. Nobody knew who he was or how he created it, but it was really like revealing, like this documentary kind of investigated and kind of revealed towards the end who they think it is. And they really introduced us to some key players in the Bitcoin industry.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I don't know anything about the industry, so I don't know like the who's who. Like I could point out Elon Musk and Bill Gates, but I didn't know about Satoshi Nakamoto. So it's really interesting.
We still don't know much about him.
we still have a lot of questions. But like you said, this taught me a lot about cryptocurrency. So if you guys are not really into it, then this might be a good watch for you. I would consider this watch-worthy. But if you're like not interested in even learning about tech, this kind of gets like very tech heavy. So that's my recommendation to you. I guess that's why we review it, so you don't have to watch it.
Yeah, I would definitely say it is, if you don't have any interest in Bitcoin at all, this documentary may be a little slow to you.
Yeah.
But it was something that we were able to enjoy because, like she said, it was super informative. So, yeah. I think we're ready to hop right in. Let's go. So we'll get started in 1997. All right. So a cryptographer named Adam Back created something called Hashcash. This was something I was completely unfamiliar with.
Same.
Never heard of it before. This was well before Bitcoin. Like I said, this was in 97. So this is like, I was like 1 year old.
Right.
1 year old.
Like you said, it was the dawn of the internet and people were already thinking about what it could do.
So this guy, Adam, he ends up becoming a CEO of a company called Blockstream. And yeah, Adam and his buddies became to be known as the cypherpunks.
Yeah, so
this is like
red flag because it's kind of like they made them like the bad guys of the internet, like they're the ones trying to go against the government. But like, why is that a red flag? It's good that as soon as the internet was invented, people were already thinking about how the government could use it, and they were really against censorship. So shout out to them.
So they would be in like all out wars over censorship, and they were basically just a group of nerds that would, like I said, be in the battle with the U.S. government over censorship and stuff like that. And this is all in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the cypherpunks understood that, you needed untraceable currency in order to be in this digital world. So they tried and failed many attempts, and they tried stuff like, Hashcash that Adam had made before, but nothing could really stick and nothing could make it, believable in those early stages. So
babe, this is what really opened my eyes to the fact that like, wow, somebody had the foresight to think if we're going to be starting to use credit cards and Apple Wallet and all that stuff, we should have something that the government can't trace. So again, shout out to them for
red flag. Because
red flag, we can't trust our government to not trace us.
And it's a red flag that we know that, like, because this isn't just America. This is the whole thing with cyber currency across the world. If the government can't trace it or tax it, it becomes a problem.
Right.
So I'm not putting a red flag because it's a problem for me, but just from, playing devil's advocate, if as soon as they wanted to make it untraceable, I'm sure they knew that it will, problems will come behind that. So,
and I think today that's why we don't have a problem with Cash App and Zelle and stuff, because the government is aware of it and they understand it,
Yep. How long did it take before they started saying, "Oh yeah, we could Cash App to help you with your taxes"?
Right. We take Klarna.
So then it's this mysterious person that seems to come out of nowhere. His name is Satoshi Nakamoto. he finally succeeded with the creation of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was what he created, the Satoshi guy, and he reached out to Adam Back to cite him and Hashcash as the inspiration for Bitcoin. Red flag.
My red flag is the fact that this was literally like the early 2000s. I didn't even know that this was happening. I was just begging my mom to get a Facebook page.
So this Satoshi guy is very mysterious, and we'll talk a lot about him because he is, he's the father of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
He came up with it. But I put a red flag there because he cited Adam as Hashcash being the inspiration behind Bitcoin. And the more we get into this episode, you'll understand why I called that a red flag.
Because they talked about how Satoshi wrote a white paper, as most scientists and tech wizards do, to explain here's what I made and how it works. But he kept citing this one guy, Adam, we told you guys about. Was there nobody else that inspired you?
And let me just add, these are not your everyday nerds,
programmers. Yeah, these are not
in your high school. No. These guys are the Princeton of MT.
Yeah,
they are the cream of the crop when it comes to coding and hacking. These are the kids that they get in the movies. It's this hacker in
right,
somewhere,
computer whiz.
Literally,
especially in the early 2000s. Again, there's no social media. It's just emails. It's just emails back and forth.
So something else that was going on in the 2000s. Let's fast forward a little bit. All right, now we're around 08. Okay, this is when the economy basically went to shit. So a lot of people didn't have trust in financial institutions. So people are starting to think more about, what's something we could use that when the economy crashes again, my money won't be,
great thinking,
lost
honestly.
in these banks that's
in 2008, you and I were just middle schoolers, but so I wasn't really thinking much about the economy crashing. I remember my dad getting laid off, but not much else. And so to think that there were already tech people, you have to think people who are in tech are already thinking 20 years ahead.
Always.
So they were already seeing this, and this just gave them proof. Here's proof. Our banks collapsed, and the government had to bail them out. You see how they're in cahoots, and
so it was interesting to see that right after the ending of 2008 and early January 3rd of 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto created the first Bitcoin block called the Genesis block. Now, this is when I said this goes back into the nerd stuff because the Bitcoin block is literally, I can't even explain it. My brain isn't big enough to explain it.
I don't know how we're going to explain this to y'all.
It's like a coding block. I don't know what it is, but it's you need a lot of power to make this thing, and it creates more and more, every 10 minutes or so, a new block is created, making a blockchain. And that's how Bitcoin was, created and became a digital currency. It was designed to protect your privacy. No single person or group controls it. You are solely responsible for your Bitcoin.
So if we could just pause there. That's why I wanted to do this episode, because I remember my mom specifically, she's Gen X, and she was saying what is this Bitcoin? My friend paid for dinner with Bitcoin and she's Bitcoin rich and I don't understand it. And I said, honestly, Mom, I don't either. It wasn't until 2020 with the stimulus checks that I realized, money is just a concept. We can just add a zero in the computer if we need to.
Yeah.
So that's basically what he did. He was I'm going to create my own currency, and it's these literal pixels in a computer. And when they said it creates a new one every 10 minutes and that's what makes the blockchain, I had heard of the word blockchain before. So then I started putting together okay. That's basically what Bitcoin is, just a made-up currency.
Yeah.
That all these people decided to start using.
But in order to make it up, you have to be in that world to know, how to do all that coding and stuff like that, which many Americans aren't. So when you just say Bitcoin is payable here, and now you see Bitcoin starting to... I got familiar with Bitcoin through Cash App because Cash App started allowing people to buy and sell Bitcoin through Cash App. I didn't know shit about no Genesis block, none of that. So it's just interesting to see how they were able to translate, that world into just everyday, spending for people. And it was out of response of a financial crisis.
Yes, I was going to say, in regards to the financial crisis, can you please put a red flag for me? Because this is, I guess, a precursor. I'm putting my red flag early for what's to come, because it's they started with good intentions, the banks aren't for us. Let's create something with privacy.
Yeah.
But then I just feel it got out of control, as usual.
So the banks are asking people, Bitcoin asks people to more so put their trust into math, right? The mathematics behind money, and not so much, the government and financial systems. So it became super popular because it fueled like constant online, get rich culture. Like
it was perfect storm.
It was the perfect thing for Americans to kind of latch onto and like, this is how I'm going to get ahead of the next financial explosion of income of billionaires becoming millionaires overnight. So Bitcoin is distributed through Bitcoin mining. This is what I hinted at earlier. It requires a lot of electricity. You can't just buy a regular computer we record this podcast on and mine Bitcoin. You need a lot of electricity. You need the proper equipment, and I'm sure it's not cheap. And it's like it was explained to in the documentary to us as the modern gold rush.
Yeah.
The more and more people mine gold, the harder it became to find, the more value gold became. So Bitcoin has a similar philosophy when it comes to the more people mine it, the harder it is to come by, which means, it raises and goes down in value a lot. So,
and I think they said in the documentary in 2010, it valued at like 23 cents. And by 2021, it was like $5,000 per Bitcoin.
Shoot, the last time I checked, it was even way higher than that. Like, it was like, the last time somebody talked to me about Bitcoin was maybe 6 months ago, and it was around 55,000.
Wow.
So, or 60, something like that. So Satoshi Nakamoto designed Bitcoin so only 21 million people, 21 million could be mined. So 21 million Bitcoins could be harvested, right? So it was created to run out around like the year 2140. So
red flag for me because whoever created it, like, I guess 2140 is a long time.
Yeah.
That's about 150 years to use it. But I still feel like they created it with an end. And if you really wanted to create a new invention that could change the world, I don't know if you would necessarily have an end to it. You know what I mean? It seemed like an end game for them to like get rich. I don't know.
So at the beginning of the documentary, Satoshi's identity is unknown. Okay, so nobody has actually said, I sat down and ate dinner with Satoshi and we talked business and stuff. Nobody has that type of...
It was so weird.
Yeah.
It was like all these nerds like, oh, I don't know who Satoshi is. I could be Satoshi.
That's why I had the red flag earlier when Satoshi gave Adam the credit of giving him the inspiration of Bitcoin, because I'm like, for all we know, that guy, Adam, could just be Satoshi.
He was acting mad weird.
himself. So
he was acting so weird in the documentary. He was like, I've been told you it's not me. I'm not Satoshi. It couldn't possibly be me.
I enjoyed watching this, though, because it was really fun to see these guys who are clearly, like, probably not the most social people. This is their world. Like, and certain people are just renowned and, as kings and queens of that world. And it was interesting to see them, talk amongst each other. So at the beginning of the documentary, his, identity is unknown, but by the end, we kind of have an idea of who it is. He wanted to conceal his identity for safety reasons because if he cashed out his Bitcoin shares, he would be worth more than $1 trillion.
Yeah.
So he saw early in the game, if I reveal who I am, then it's, people are going to want to talk to me. I'm going to be a conflict of interest of governments. So he came into the Bitcoin game under what we believe is a false identity.
That was a smart move because, imagine if everybody knew you're the creator, so of course you're going to have the most shares.
Yeah.
If everybody knew who it was, they'll be trying to kill you. They'll be trying to come for you.
Exactly.
So, that was very smart. Like, great foresight, honestly.
And anytime a currency is invented or becomes popular, the government begins to snoop around.
Red flag.
That's just how the world governments are. All right, it's not just America. But that's how it is. They want to know what people are using to spend money in their country.
They need to crack down on Usher Bucks.
Before Bitcoin, Usher Bucks. Before Bitcoin, there was eGold, which was backed by real gold. I missed this point. I was probably a kid worried about Power Rangers. I remember this.
But that is so interesting to know. Like you said earlier on, Bitcoin was not the first to do it.
No,
there was Hashcash. There was eGold.
So eGold was backed by real gold. Eventually, the feds shut them down because they said, "Fuck that!
You can't do anything."
All of this it undermines the Federal Reserve of money and the Treasury and all of this shit. So the government wasn't having it. So they hate Bitcoin.
Yeah.
In 2010, Satoshi feared Bitcoin would be shut down before it even took off.
Yeah.
Because at this point, this isn't the surge of Bitcoin that I'm remembering when I was in college. This is still very beginner stages. So, but it has proven to be financially successful for the creator. So he feared it would be shut down. WikiLeaks had become an enemy of the state, and they were now accepting donations in Bitcoin.
So if the government doesn't like WikiLeaks and they start accepting Bitcoin, they think it's evil. They think it's something wrong. It's got to be bad.
So y'all got to remember, this is the 2000s we talking about. Terrorism is a very hot word. It still is, but back then it was even, you know what I'm saying?
No, this was when WikiLeaks was literally like leaking stuff in the government. They was leaking Hillary's emails.
So this is, you know, all of the stuff that Satoshi kind of foreseen. There's like even interactions where like people want to talk to people who are connected to Satoshi. Like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go talk to the CIA about what we're doing. He's like, no.
Yeah, that's a no.
So he was.
They actually made. Remember, they kept calling them the 3-letter agencies in the documentary.
Yeah. They don't even give them the
CIA, the FBI, all of them.
So Satoshi worried that, you know, they would catch, you know, the attention of the government eventually. He fell back completely and only talked to a few people in Bitcoin. And one of the main guys he talked to was a man named Gavin Anderson.
That's really crazy that you created something as lucrative as Bitcoin and then you just fall back. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't want to get mixed up with the government either.
Yeah.
Like you said, they arrested the creator of eGold. So if he saw that in the future, he was like, nah, I'm cool.
Fuck that.
And Bitcoin was probably just a little project in his room to show himself that he could even do it, you know? So Gavin, as Brother Ash said, he was really one of the only people that Satoshi trusted. And you'll learn the Bitcoin industry is just like any other part of the tech industry. You know, it's the who's who, and it's this side versus that side. And it always comes down to regulation, right? Some people want more regulation. Some people want less regulation. So Gavin, he was really like the spokesperson for Satoshi in 2010, 2011. And he helped normalize Bitcoin. Like you said, it launched officially in 2009, but then in these earlier years, we slowly started to see it pick up. And that's when everybody was at conferences like Bitcoin's the next big thing, blah, blah, blah. And so Satoshi eventually ended up cutting ties with Gavin because by 2011, he heard that he was trying to work with the CIA. So red flag, Gavin was one of those people who was like, oh, we have a good thing here. Why not get the government involved? Why not work with them?
Yeah.
But we've seen the answer why you shouldn't work with them. So that's when Satoshi just fell off the face of the earth and he was not heard from again.
Nope.
And so from there, it was like people like Adam Bach and Gavin Anderson, they're the ones who kind of like kept Bitcoin going as far as like the front facing, you know?
Yeah.
I think Satoshi was still active on some of the, you know, online forums and stuff. But again, didn't want his identity to be known, didn't want anything to do with the government. So unfortunately, people started using Bitcoin to buy drugs. And
red flag.
Yeah, red flag.
It was only a matter of time.
It was only a matter of time for people started, you know, using it wrong.
And
even today, those TikTok coins, how do you cash those in? It's a little freaky how people be getting those.
I don't even know what the.
Yeah, so.
But it was crazy because they like were specific in the documentary, like not just, you know, a little weed.
Yeah, it was hard drugs. It was gun trafficking.
Yeah.
All paid for with
basically
Bitcoins.
The black market, like it was. Yeah, whatever you could get.
But that actually ended up helping to skyrocket the value of Bitcoin. Like you said, more people are using it. It's getting more popular. Unfortunately, the science behind it, people start to figure out, oh, we tried to make an untraceable currency, but it actually is traceable. Red flag.
Got y'all
Anything
niggas.
y'all do on the internet is traceable. When will you learn? I don't care if you're in the depths of the dark web. There's got to be a line somewhere.
There is a techie somewhere that will find your ass.
Yeah. So that's when they were like, oh, in 2013, let's call in a programmer, Peter Todd, and maybe he can help find a solution. And this was Adam Bach. Like I said, it's kind of like Adam over here and Gavin on this side, you know, two sides of Bitcoin. Adam's like, okay, maybe we could keep this in-house so we can figure this out and fix it ourselves. He hires Peter Todd. So the solution that they came up with was called Replace by Fee. Again, this is very technical. I'm not going to get into how it works, but essentially it's kind of risky. And some people were like, hell no, we can't do that. That's almost fraudulent. We shouldn't be doing that. But then other people were like, oh, this is the only way to fix it. So I think they said he was working on this. Peter Todd was working on this for like a decade. Like he didn't magically solve this. But I think that's the best solution they came up with in 2022. And so overall, a lot of people don't like Peter Todd in the Bitcoin industry. Put a red flag for Peter. Because there's a few instances in the documentary where you're like, you want to like this guy, but there's just a few red flags. Like number one, it was like he claimed it was somebody who worked for the CIA named John Dillon, who's the one who came up with the replace by fee solution. It really wasn't him. And so they were like, okay, where is this John Dillon? And he was like, oh, I can't, cite my source. I can't tell y'all. So people were like, is John Dillon even real, or are you John Dillon? So then people started to think that Peter was like a mole, like you're one of us, you're a programmer working alongside us, but you're actually a government mole or something. So it got deep, y'all. I didn't know that the Bitcoin industry was like this.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's like
the mafia.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Like you just gotta watch this documentary to see like how these
It was
guys,
drama. It was tea. And so then there's some other things like Peter is the main one who's like, oh yeah, I've been in the Bitcoin game since the beginning with Adam, and I believe Bitcoin is good. But they also said he's a contrarian, where he'll be like, well, also, there are some bad sides to Bitcoin, and if you guys don't have credit cards, you're idiots. Like, just saying stuff like that, where it's like, are you team Bitcoin or not? Because, and that industry is very black and white, like either you are or you aren't. And Peter kind of like rides the fence. And they said that it was weird that he made himself oddly close to Adam Bach. And if you see him in the documentary, he's like, oh, I'm not close to Adam at all. Are you kidding me? Like,
I've been pronouncing it back this whole time. I apologize.
Adam Bach, yeah.
Bach.
But it was just like very standoffish behavior. As soon as he got on camera, he was like, I don't even know that much about Bitcoin for real. And they're like, what aren't you telling us?
Yeah. Peter was
weird. This whole time, we're watching this like a true crime documentary, like, ooh, do you think Satoshi is Peter or do you think Satoshi is Adam? Because both of them just seem to be lying to the camera. And it was very funny to just see like these white nerdy guys like, I can't possibly be Satoshi. Like, come on.
Like literally like giggling amongst each other.
They were literally giggling. Like they were so nervous. It was so funny. And so, that's a lot about Peter and Adam. And then Adam had another colleague, Samson Mow. Red flag for Samson. Because, like I told you, in the Bitcoin industry, it's either like pro-Bitcoin or not. And Samson is pro-Bitcoin. In fact, they call them Bitcoin maximalists. That sounds like a terrorist group if I ever heard of one. And people like Samson literally kind of use their influence to get nation states to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. So this is not for play no more. Like first it was cute, like, oh, we're playing with the stocks. But now he's literally trying to get, and succeeded at getting countries to make Bitcoin a legal tender. And again, that's really cool for, in theory, it's really cool for countries like El Salvador who say, we don't want the government controlling our money. We want to have some privacy. Let's use this as legal tender. But we just told you guys, Bitcoin is traceable. It's being sold as private, but it really is traceable.
Yeah.
And so now you have whole governments in El Salvador who are saying like, yes, we believe in this and we're going to trust you and we're going to adopt Bitcoin. So it's just seeming a little shady to me. People like Samson, he literally has made it his mission to like evangelica and be an evangelist for Bitcoin. So that's kind of a red flag to me. People like Samson working so close to Adam Bach as well. Like you're basically buddy with some of the creators of Bitcoin or people who were like in the early stages. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how a programmer or a techie person can have that much power, but we've seen people like Elon Musk who literally are going to be appointed on Trump's administration.
Well, if you're a techie in the digital world, that's pretty scary if you know what you're doing because you can control a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of news.
It's like political power, yeah.
Information we see is based off of these images that we get on our phones, computers, that are connected to these databases that these guys can just hack into. Like, so,
right.
Yeah.
They literally talk about how some of the craziest people in America have the nuclear codes.
The meek will inherit the earth.
Yeah. So by 2014, Bitcoin started to go mainstream. We haven't even gotten to the good part yet, y'all. that's when, people started to using it. But if too many people start to use it, it could go bust. And we've seen that happen before, like with the GameStop stock and everything in the pandemic. Even I was like, ooh, let me get on this. And then, it was over before it even started. So they were nervous about that. But somehow Bitcoin has managed to stick around. And people like Gavin, we told you earlier how they ran into a problem. Oh, something that was created in 2008, surprise, surprise, it's not working for us in the 2010s. How can we make it better? How can we change it? The thing is, not a lot of people know who Satoshi is, so they can't just tap him on the shoulder like, hey, bro, go back in your code and fix it. So people like Gavin, they're just like, oh, maybe if we make the blockchain bigger, then we can make the return bigger. Like crazy, stupid ideas like that. But it's like, number one, you can't even get in there to change the code. And if you could make the block bigger, so to speak, you will be ruining the whole supply, they said. Just a lot of technical stuff. So it's just better if y'all just don't touch it and just let it run its course. But instead, people get greedy, so they're like, ooh, how can we make this better? So it has really started like a whole civil war in the Bitcoin industry. Like I said, you got people over here like, oh, let's keep it how it is. We got people over here like, let's modernize it, let's change it. And it could just be digging itself in a hole. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've already seen another crash happen. And so today, there's still greedy people like Samson who are like, we can make Bitcoin go faster. That was his thing in the documentary. How can we make it go faster? Because we told you have to be patient with Bitcoin mining. It takes 10 minutes just to mine one block.
Yeah.
So you got people who are sitting here on their hands like, I don't got time for this. Let's make this faster.
Yeah.
But in fact, it's literally a digital process that's using real electricity and real power. So it's bad for the environment. Come to find out, blockchain mining is bad for the environment. So if you didn't have enough red flags, there's another one right there.
Yeah, and that's what I had no idea this shit was that. I literally thought it was. I didn't know what the fuck it was, but I didn't know it required, extreme amounts of electricity. I didn't know it was bad for the environment. I didn't know about the whole block thing. Like, it's so much in this world that I just didn't know about.
And so by 2017, y'all know cash was becoming obsolete. I was definitely swiping my card in college. I wasn't carrying around cash. And so that's when all of these fake Bitcoins, what they refer to in the documentary as shit coins, they start popping up. Because I guess other people are like, oh, if they can make their own currency, I can make my own currency. And we started seeing these different things. I remember that era, like 2016, 2020, where it was a free-for-all. It was like, you got to get on this crypto, you got to get on that crypto. And I didn't know what from what. But I guess that was done on purpose. Like, all these different shit coins started popping up to compete with Bitcoin. And so by 2018, we experienced the